President Trump held a phone call with Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, the UAE ruler. That same evening, we received missile alerts on our phone saying that Iranian missiles were coming towards the country. The Ministry of Defense then declared that there were 2 ballistic missiles that were attacking shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, and they landed in the sea. Just moments after that, the UAE declared that they were cutting all commercial exchange, all trade, and all financial ties directly with Iran, financial transactions. And I think we know why that is the case now, because President Trump has come out with these comments suggesting economic D-Day for Iran. In fact, 2 Gulf diplomatic sources have also told me that the US has been putting pressure on the Gulf countries to cut financial ties with Iran. The Iranians have responded to President Trump's pressure for isolating Iran economically. The Deputy Foreign Minister, Kazem Garibabadi, has said that they claim Iran is on the brink of collapse and hanging by a thread, yet they beg all their allies to help them. The problem is the wrong calculations, that each time they cover them up, they're forced to create a bigger failure for themselves. The military war didn't yield results, so now they've named their next failure economic war. And I think what's happening here, Steph, is that President Trump is running out of options, and he's running out of them pretty quickly. And so his next step here is economic warfare, something which Iran has been doing over the last 6 months with the Strait of Hormuz, stopping shipping in that waterway, and as a result, having control over the global energy markets. President Trump is betting that he can break Iran economically, and in the process, get a deal which benefits the US and get out of this conflict. And look, whilst it may have some impact on Iran economically, directly to the people, but also the military as well, Steph, history suggests that this will not work, because Iran are incredibly resilient. They will not back down to anyone's demands, no matter what hardship they have to face. And actually, what it may do is just push them further away to not make a deal directly with the US. Steph.
Inzamam, thank you so much. Let's get smarter now and bring in our leadoff panel. Kevin Frey is here, Capitol Hill reporter for MS Now. Jeff Mason, White House and Washington correspondent for Bloomberg. And Dave Weigel, political reporter for Semafor. Jeff, the question goes to you. If economic D-Day is our silver bullet, why didn't we do it already? There's 18 American military families who lost their sons, daughters, brothers, sisters, and spouses. If this was the magic to end the war, why now?
Yeah, I think that's the key question, Steph, and I'm going to punt it to the White House because it's really for them to answer. And I think the broader question that sparks is A, as you said, why didn't they start with that? And B, why hasn't President Trump explained why he doesn't want to continue with military operations? We have some ideas to why. Certainly the reporting about munitions being low is one of them, and the president's desire just to get out of this conflict ahead of the midterms. But the results are still there. The gasoline prices are still high. The political ramifications are still really devastating to him, at least potentially going in to the November elections. And so he's trying a new tactic. And I guess to answer one question with one more, the biggest question will be, does it work?
Well, this new economic tactic, Kevin, takes time, right? Economic pressure takes time to build. This is not an overnight bomb. To Jeff's point, the midterms are 75 days away. How are Republicans on the Hill going to feel about this, message around it? They need an end to this.
Yeah, I mean, look, they would like to, during this campaign season, be talking about the benefits of last year's reconciliation package and lower taxes and saying that we're really making this economy zing. And this will only add one more complication to that messaging strategy as Democrats continue to pummel them over affordability, the cost of living, and also notably gas prices. And this, as I reported earlier this week, could throw, for example, the state of Alaska into play when it comes to the Senate race, where some of those communities, especially if we continue to see oil prices high, if we continue to see this stretch into the coming months, some of those communities are going to see gas prices upwards of $10 a gallon, which could complicate Republicans' ability to hold on to the Senate in a state where Democrats are suddenly feeling like, oh, perhaps we have an opportunity here. So for Republicans to have to now grapple with the economic message is going to be quite complicated. We already see them not doing a lot of town halls, not wanting to go out in public and taking those questions from constituents, and this complicates the message even further.
And let's be clear, even if they wanted to talk about the reconciliation bill, I'm not entirely sure what they would say. We are not paying a whole lot less in taxes. Companies are paying less in taxes. Companies are having a boost in their earnings right now because they've been getting tens of millions of dollars in refunds from the tariffs. What are you and I getting? Nothing from that. Dave, let's focus on these midterms, though, because Angie Nixon, the latest Democrat, who is now making the argument that her candidacy is not about labels like Democratic Socialist. It's not about labels like being progressive. It's about addressing the needs of the voters. Are Americans on the same page? At least in the primary, they were for her.
Angie Nixon's an interesting case where she joined DSA while running for Senate. She was not a member before. She had her own identity, own reputation as a progressive legislator in Florida, and she jumped onto the DSA bandwagon. I'm not trying to be pejorative about that. That's what happened. She started to become a speaker at DSA events. Given that margin, she probably wins this race anyway, and she is, if you look at her interviews so far since she won, turning every question about DSA back into her issues. That's what every DSA candidate is doing. You're seeing this tension between the national DSA organization, the positions they take or have taken in the past, and candidates who are running on populist messaging. As a point to what Kevin was saying, Republicans would rather be talking about what's in the DSA platform of 2021 than about Iran. And she is in a different position in another way. Democrats are not targeting Florida. They don't think the Senate seat is winnable. She has a free play here where she can run a progressive campaign, get attention the way she's been getting attention, and not really contradict the messaging of Democrats in D.C. because they're not supporting her.
Jeff, so far Republican voters, let's talk about them. They have rejected 10 Trump-endorsed candidates this primary season. I would love to hear the president asked about that because he argues everyone he's endorsed here, there, and everywhere wins, but 10. CNN actually did the math. That is equal to the number from 2018, 2020, and 2024 campaigns combined. His hold on Republican lawmakers is obviously very strong, but Republican voters, not so much.
Well, and again, to bring up one more question is, to what extent is that going to impact his ability to hold on to majorities in the House and the Senate come November? And that's the most consequential ramification of that. But sure, that record is probably not as good as he would like it to be. I doubt very much that that's what he would emphasize if we asked him about that. He would emphasize the ones who have won, right? But surely that, I mean, look, he's potentially put a really important seat in Texas in the Senate at risk because of his endorsement there, and that endorsement did win. So, but will he be able to win the Senate seat? Again, lots of ramifications. There will be lots of time for analysis after the midterm elections, and some of that, no doubt, will be focused on the president and where he used his bully pulpit, as we've been talking about with regard to Iran, but also his endorsement power and whether or not that backfires.
You know what he doesn't use his bully pulpit to talk about? Data centers. Okay? He is clearly in the camp of these big, giant AI tech companies, but data centers have become a huge issue for races across this country, and the way the American voter is feeling about them bust through party lines. They are not happy. Dave, I know you have new reporting on how Republicans are scrambling to respond because what their constituents want and what this president is approving, two very different things. Look, he's even going out of his way to help Elon Musk's AI business, where states have said no mas.
Yes, Greg Abbott is the illustration in that piece because what he's doing is the most dramatic here. He's been governor of Texas for 12 years. They've had a tax break for tech companies that you just mentioned, Elon Musk. It's been great for Texas. Part of their advertising is move your business to Texas. He is now, in the last 2 months, put a halt on new data center construction and reintroducing himself to voters as a champion against these companies, or at least steering what they're doing in a way that will benefit voters. And Democrats, Gina Hinojosa, who's running against him, saying this is a campaign stunt. He's not serious about this. Every Republican governor is getting assists from the White House. You saw the president did this again yesterday. The president is a booster of the industry, booster of data centers, says that we need to win the AI race with China. And you look at polling. People are not that interested in AI replacing all the functions that it's not in charge of right now. What the White House has done is put out a pledge, non-binding pledge, that companies can sign and governors can sign, saying they're going to focus on lowering electricity rates. Data centers have to control the requirement. Yeah.
Are we really going to give them credit for that? Let's just underline and let's say it again. A non-binding pledge. Okay?
Yes.
A non-binding pledge to these companies that are facing absolutely no regulation that says, sign this piece of paper that says, if you feel like it on a Tuesday between 2 and 3 p.m., you might actually do something. Give me a break.
That's the attitude most voters have about this, but that's what the White House has been doing, is saying, we've got it under control. If you're worried about data centers, the president is managing this. Republican governors have signed that pledge, and Democratic governors have not been invited to sign it. So it is clearly something that Republicans are doing for the midterms, to say this issue is cutting against us. Where we can protect our flank, we'll do it. Where we can outflank Democrats and say they are the ones who love data centers, we'll do it. And the president has some, you might not, maybe the word credibility is not the best here, but the way the president handles corporate America, in letting them into the room, demanding kickbacks in some ways from them, but basically giving them what they want. That's kind of the model for what's happening with data centers now.
It's not kind of the model. It is.